You know, four-wheel drives, they can go places other vehicles just can't. And it's not magic, not at all. So in this explainer, we're going to dive into the incredible engineering secrets, this whole world of physics and power and control that makes the impossible, well, possible.
Yeah, you've totally seen the pictures, right? The crazy videos of a truck just perched on a giant rock or crawling up some slope that looks almost vertical. You look at that and you think, how? It just seems impossible. But it's not magic, it's really a masterpiece of mechanical engineering. So, let's get into it. How do they actually do that?
All right, the first and, maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle, it isn't about having some huge roaring engine. Nope. It's all about how that engine's power actually gets delivered to the wheels. And that, my friends, brings us to the secret of low range.
So what is it? Simply put, low range is just a special set of gears. Your engine is working just as hard, maybe even harder, but the vehicle itself is moving way slower. And that trade-off, swapping speed for sheer force, that's the absolute key to a slow, controlled, and super powerful crawl over pretty much any obstacle.
Okay, and here's a really cool way to think about it. Imagine you're trying to lift something super heavy with just a rope. It's going to be incredibly hard, right? But what if you add a pulley? Suddenly, the effort you need is cut in half. Sure, you have to pull more rope and the weight moves up slowly, but the point is you can actually lift it. Well, low range does the exact same thing for your car's drivetrain. It's like a pulley system for your car. And this really breaks down the difference perfectly. High range, that's for your normal everyday driving on the highway. But when the terrain gets tough, man, that's when you engage low range. It saves your vehicle from a ton of stress, it gives you this amazing precise control, and it even uses the engine's own power to help you brake when you're going down steep hills.
So it kind of sounds like it's just all about brute force, right? Just multiplying power. But that's only half the story. I mean, think about it. Having all the power in the world is completely useless if your tires aren't even touching the ground. And that's true if you're on a rocky trail or a snowy highway. So, is it just about raw power? Absolutely not.
So let's talk about the real unsung hero of off-roading, the suspension system. This is the thing that separates a vehicle that's just capable from one that's truly unstoppable. And it's not just about making the ride comfy. It's all about control and stability when you're in the most unstable places you can imagine.
Because really, that's its core mission. The real magic isn't about just floating over bumps, it's about articulating over them. The suspension's whole job is to make sure that as the vehicle twists and turns and gets into these crazy positions, the tires stay in contact with the ground as much as physically possible. Because, well, no contact means no traction. Simple as that.
So how does the suspension actually do that? How does it keep those wheels planted on the ground? Well, it's kind of like a complex dance between a bunch of key parts and some really important physical principles all working together in harmony.
Okay, let's look at the building blocks here. First, you've got springs. Their job is to support the vehicle's weight. Then you have shock absorbers, which are crucial for stopping you from just bouncing all over the place. Control arms dictate how the wheels move up and down, and sway bars, they manage how much the vehicle's body rolls from side to side. Every single part has a super critical role in keeping that tire on the ground.
And all these parts are designed to balance some key physical properties. The springs, they give you stiffness for stability. The shocks, they provide what's called damping to absorb those big hits. The whole system needs enough travel, which is just the range of motion, to flex over huge obstacles. And on top of all that, it has to be durable enough to survive a constant beating. It's a really delicate engineering act.
But when you get that balance just right, oh man, the results are transformative. You end up with a vehicle that's not only way more capable and performs better, but it's also fundamentally safer and a heck of a lot more comfortable for everyone inside.
Okay, so we get the two key systems, right? Gearing and suspension. But how did they actually work together to solve specific problems? Let's look at some real-world examples.
This chart lays it out so well. When you're on a steep climb, low range is keeping your transmission from getting cooked, while the suspension is working overtime to keep those tires gripping. Then, going downhill, low range acts like a giant brake, saving your actual brakes from overheating. And what about a tricky beach exit? That's low range giving you the steady power you need, and the suspension just soaking up all the ruts to get you out.
And, this leads to a super critical piece of advice that comes directly from understanding how these systems work. After a really long, steep descent, your parts can get incredibly hot. If you immediately plunge into a cold water crossing, you can cause some serious damage. That hot metal cools and contracts way too fast. So what's the pro tip? It's simple. Just wait. Give your vehicle a few minutes to cool down. Because, look, using this tech correctly is absolutely vital. So, what happens when you get it wrong? Let's take a look at one of the most common and so frustrating scenarios for any off-roader.
Here it is, the perfect recipe for disaster on the beach. You're cruising along on the hard-packed sand, you're in high range, everything feels totally fine. Then, you make that turn to go uphill and exit onto that soft, deep, churned-up sand. Instantly, your vehicle just starts to struggle. All your momentum is gone in a flash. The engine bogs down, and before you even know what's happening, you're stuck. You're not going anywhere.
And yep, this is the result. You're buried up to your side steps, totally stuck, and now you're the person blocking the exit for everybody else. And it's all because you didn't take just a few seconds to stop and pop it into low range before you hit that soft stuff.
I mean, this engineering is already incredible, but it is not standing still, not by a long shot. Researchers and engineers are constantly pushing the boundaries of what's even possible. So what's next? What does the future of off-road stability even look like?
Well, the future is intelligent. Seriously, imagine an advanced AI that can literally read the terrain ahead of you and adjust the suspension before you even hit a bump. Or think about new, lightweight materials that are somehow stronger and more flexible than steel. All of this is leading to suspension systems that are smart enough for autonomous vehicles to navigate super rough terrain all by themselves.
And a huge piece of this future puzzle is smart sensors. Things like gyroscopes. They can detect every single tiny tilt and rotation. This gives the vehicle a perfect sense of where it is in space. And that means the suspension can react to the terrain instantly, like as it's happening, not a split second too late. Which, leaves us with one final and pretty fascinating question. All this technology, it's all leading to one point. What happens when a vehicle's suspension isn't controlled by a person, but by an AI? An AI that can process data from dozens of sensors and make tiny, microscopic adjustments thousands of times a second, adapting to the world faster than any human possibly could. Well, the impossible just becomes a little more possible.